how does magic in this book work? And it's a rhetorical question, because nobody knows. Because the book doesn't fucking tell you. I was upset. Okay. Alright. Are we ready to start? Probably not. It's book club day, so we're gonna start talking about book club. We're gonna stop getting distracted by other things, and we're gonna start talking about book club. So, okay, so I actually spent the last, like, 45 minutes of my workday not doing work, and instead I was going back over a conversation that Liz and I had after I finished the Atlas 6, because we just went in on, like, the whole book and talked about it. So I was like, okay, let me go over this whole conversation again so I remember everything and I get, like, refreshed on the book, because since Atlas 6, I've read Empire the Vampire, The Love Hypothesis, A Historical Romance, and I am 400 pages into The Priory of the Orange Tree. So it's a little behind other things right now. So I had to bring it back up, had to bring it back to the forefront, and I have notes. I have notes on the book, and I'm ready to go. And the last thing that I did for book club, so we had our October book club stream that we did, and I talked for so long. I cannot believe you guys let me talk for that long about that book. It was ridiculous. So we're gonna not do that today. I'm gonna not talk for an hour before we even get to the reviews, because in the meantime, I also edited the March video, the lore video, and that went so much smoother. I had like 15 minutes of, like, once I edited everything down, I had like 10-15 minutes of my talking about the book, and then we got to reviews, and I'm like, this is much better. This is great. Not me talking for an hour and a half and, like, talking through the whole book. So let me not do that with the Atlas 6. So I struggle a lot with how to review things, because I don't know how to write a review, and because I don't know how to write a review, I definitely don't know how to say a review. I don't know how to, like, talk about a review. My J. Kristoff review was perfection. You are correct. My Empire the Vampire review is absolutely perfect. If you haven't seen it, go to Goodreads, look me up on Goodreads and find my Empire the Vampire review. It's perfection. You don't ever need to read anything else about Empire the Vampire, just that. Yes, there you go. Now you're remembering. So that was like an hour and a half of us talking through the book, like through the whole plot, and then getting into reviews. And we're gonna not do that. That was like untenable. We can't do that again. That took so long, and why? So I'm gonna try and do a little bit less for the Atlas 6. And then we'll move into what you guys thought. So I'm gonna tell you guys what I thought, the things that I liked, the things that I didn't like, my own rating, and then we'll get into all of yours. And we're not gonna spend like 2 hours in this pre-screen. What we are gonna talk about instead, and not the previous subject, is the Atlas 6 by Olivie Blake. And so I like the aesthetic of a matte cover, but do you see all my fucking fingerprints on this? Why? I honestly did mean to, like, wipe down the book before this, because I was like, it's gonna be real embarrassing when I get on and have fingerprints all over it. But here we are. So, yeah, I really like the aesthetic of a matte book, but this thing is covered in my gross-ass fingerprints. Like, I look like I was eating the oiliest finger foods while I read this book, and it's absolutely killing me. Which it says nothing about the book, but I just noticed it as soon as I held it up, and I'm like, if I don't address this now, it will bug the shit out of me when I go to edit it. And I'm like, everybody just thinks I have gross hands. Maybe I do, but also probably it's the book. So the Atlas 6 is disappointing. I'm just gonna say that right off the bat. I was really, really excited for this book. I thought it was gonna be so good. I went in, like, I had really, not super high expectations, but high hopes for this book. I heard about it on TikTok, as you do with a lot of books, because Booktok is its own behemoth. And this thing got huge on TikTok, and having read it, I could absolutely not tell you why. I don't know why this is what got so big. So I'll start off by saying what I liked about this book, and that's the premise. The idea of, like, I always love a fantasy book with, like, a secret under society of magic or anything sci-fi like that, that, like, is outside of whatever. You just have the normal world, you have our world, and then you have this secret underbelly of magic. So whether you want to call that low fantasy or whatever, I love that. I love dark academia. I was told over and over and over again this book is dark academia. Technically it is. I'm not saying it's not. I love a good dark academia. I love a good low fantasy. And I don't tend to go in for character driven over plot driven, but I do like a good ensemble. I like a good character ensemble. And that's what this was supposed to be, because it's the Atlas 6, there are 6 characters. So overall, as a premise, I was really invested. And so this idea where you have the secret society and they approach these people and they're like, you know, come with us for a year and then, you know, you might get to be a part of the society for the rest of your life. It's the kind of once in a lifetime opportunity. This will never come up again, yada, yada, yada. I'm into it. However, it was not well executed at all. There is no world building. It does a terrible, terrible job of balancing 6 characters and 6 points of view. This book should have been max 2 points of view. And I'll tell you later which characters it should have been, or which characters I think it should have been. I think this is the bare bones of a really cool story that never gets any deeper than that. Which is very disappointing. That's why I like the first few chapters. Honestly, this book starts off so strong. The first chapter with Nico and Libby, so good. So good. She did a really great job introducing Nico and Libby together. And I think starting with that set her up for the rest of the book to be a disappointment. Because at no point, in my opinion, were any of the characters as good as Nico and Libby. Ever. And so when you start off with introducing them, and then everyone gets significantly worse, like, just down the line. Nico and Libby through the whole book are the only 2 characters that I gave a shit about. Literally, how do people think it's a 5-star read? I don't know, and I had actually meant to, so I'm curious to see if anybody in here really, really liked it. And then I'm curious to go online and look at, like, the 5-star Goodreads reviews. I have a theory on why TikTok liked it so much that we'll get to in a bit. Booktok got it so tragically wrong. They do that sometimes. It do be like that sometimes. Good editing could really step this up. So that's the other thing. So this is self-published. It is re-releasing in March because it actually got picked up by Tor, which is actually my favorite publisher. And it's getting re-edited. And so I don't know what that means. I don't know if that means it's getting proofread for, you know, sentence structure and spelling and grammar. I didn't really see too many typos. I think maybe I spotted a couple. Or does that mean it's getting story editing? Because if it's getting story editing, and I think rather than taking things out, this needs a lot added to it. This should be a longer book. That could really help. There are things that should be taken out and there are things that should be added, in my opinion. And good editing could really, really strengthen this. What I worry about is that it got so popular and so big on its own that they're going to be like, well, people really liked it as it is, so we're not going to mess with it too much. And that would suck, because I think this has the potential to be a lot better than it is. I'm looking at my notes to make sure I don't miss anything. So yeah, Nico and Libby. So in this, we have the Atlas 6. The main 6 characters are Nico, Libby, Raina, Callum, Parisa, and Tristan. I had to go back into my notes because I could not remember Parisa or Tristan's names. I barely remembered Callum. The only reason I remembered Callum is because I don't like him so much that, like, it's stuck in my brain. Yeah, so there's 6 characters. Those are our... Actually, no, there's 7 points of view. Sorry, there are 7 points of view in this book. No, absolutely not. And I'm not saying that can't work, because I really like 6 of Crows and Crooked Kingdom. 6 points of view works great. This ain't it. See if you remember who has what powers. I wrote them down. I wrote them down here. The only one I don't really remember a ton is Callum, because he's like an empath, right? Like, he senses emotions and like can change emotions. So Nico and Libby are both physicists. Could I fucking explain to you what Nico or Libby do? No, I could not. We'll get to that too. Raina is a naturalist, sort of. She's basically a fucking battery for like the world around her and other powers and the plants around her. Callum, I guess, is an empath. Parisa's a telepath who's fucking useless. Sorry, she's not useless. Her power is useless. Parisa could have been not a telepath, just a normal-ass person, and had the exact same story that she had otherwise. And Tristan can't see through illusions. He simply cannot see illusions. He is blind to illusions and he sees the world as it is. So Nico and Libby I thought were really good. Reina, speaking of not balancing 6 points of view really well, Reina had the potential to be the coolest fucking character. I was so interested in her. Her power is so cool and she gets like no page time. She is criminally underused as a character. She is just shunted off to the side, not really talked about a lot, not talked to a lot. And she could have been one of the coolest people. I kept wanting to know more about her. And then we got nothing. Exactly. Reina exists. That is what she does in this book. She exists. And part of me wonders if, I'm gonna move this head pillow. Part of me wonders if maybe the reason that I did like her so much is that she didn't have a lot of page time. So, like, I could kind of make her character whatever I wanted in my head because there wasn't anything on the page. Callum, I hated. And, like, not even just in the way that you're supposed to hate Callum, because you're not supposed to like him. But he was a hateable character in the worst way. Like, it wasn't fun to not like him. He was just not likable. Parisa, I fucking hated from the moment she was introduced. Tristan was fine. He was fine. I didn't like him in the beginning. I kind of liked him by the end. But really, all of these people I could give or take, with the exception of Nico and Libby. And the reason I think I connected more with Nico and Libby is she took time to establish them within other characters. So Libby has a connection to outside characters with Ezra. Nico has a connection to outside characters with Gideon. Nico and Gideon is 100% the only reason I love that guy so much. Nico's connection with and his interactions with Gideon outside of the six was so good. Oh, you liked Parisa? We'll talk about why I didn't like her. I'll get into why I didn't like her. Libby was a favorite. I think just the two of them were more developed. And then for having 6 people who were living in really close proximity for a year, they rarely interacted with each other. Like, they didn't really hang out a lot. By the end, some of them simply just didn't know each other. And I'm like, you guys lived together for a year. And I have no indication that any of you have any meaningful connections outside of like a couple. It just made it very hard to be invested in the characters because you didn't get to spend enough time with them. This book is only 380 pages. It's a pretty short book to have 6 points of view. So you just don't get to spend enough time with any of them. And so the nice thing with Nico and Libby is that when you read one, you were usually reading the other. They were in some ways connected to each other just from having known each other in the beginning. So that helped. But the rest of them? No. Callum had the best Callum had the worst dialogue. That's our divergence. I can't stand his dialogue. I could not stand. Callum and Ezra had the same kind of shitty dialogue. I really hated it. Okay, so moving on from that. I guess to talk about individuals, we can talk about why I didn't like Parisa. So Parisa, I'll say if I didn't know going into this that Olivie Blake was a woman, I would have assumed this book was written by a man. Just straight up. As soon as she starts introducing women and the way she writes her female characters, would have assumed this was written by a man. Because in the first, 80 pages, we get introduced to 2 women, Eden and Parisa, and both of them have beauty as their defining characteristic. Imagine having a telepath, an extremely powerful telepath, and that is not her defining characteristic. The fact that she's hot is. Excuse me? I was bored to tears by Parisa because her whole thing was that she's hot. Most of her character comes down to the fact that she's hot, and that's kind of how she lives her life and how she gets through things. And so the first 2 people we meet, or the first 2 women we meet, are Eden and Parisa. Eden is this vapid, stupid, very attractive influencer heiress, airhead, who's also sleeping with her fiance's best friend. So already, bad character that we don't like. Parisa gets introduced in... So we meet Parisa, and I'll say right off the bat, I have no problem with Parisa's, basically the way she gets by in life and the way she gets her kicks and the way she enjoys living her life is that she sleeps with powerful people and uses that to get what she wants from them. I am absolutely here for that story. I really am. What makes it so boring is that it's entirely based off how attractive she is. And that's really all that matters. And I think as I was reading it, the idea that I had was like, it would be so much more interesting and so much more central to the story if the way that she got if the way that she got what she wanted, the way that she got into bed, the way that she got people in the first place wasn't because she was super hot. Make her very average looking, make her incredibly average, nothing particularly special, but because she's a telepath, she knows exactly what somebody wants, so she can be whoever that person wants, whether in demeanor and in characteristics and things like that, and like her mannerisms. That's so much more interesting than like she looks like Megan Fox, so she gets everything. And that's really how it's written, because after that we are introduced to Reina, and the first thing that Reina thinks when she sees Parisa is that girls like Parisa get whatever they want their whole life because they're pretty. Oh my god. It was giving me big, like, I was talking to Liz about this and I was like, I don't know if I'm projecting, but like, it's given me big, I was bullied by the pretty girls in high school vibes. Like, the fact that we had two very, very attractive women whose defining characteristic was what they looked like, and that they were wildly unpleasant people, and partially because of that, was very giving me bad vibes. Giving me bad vibes. Like, the whole like, the prettier a girl is, the meaner she is, I feel like we moved away from that 10 years ago. I feel like we've grown since then. But that really seems to be the whole point of Eden. Is a very throwaway character. Like, we kind of hear about her once or twice and then she's gone. So that, I don't know whether you want to count that or not. Whatever. But Parisa is kind of stated multiple times to be a very unpleasant person, and the fact that she's able to get away with being like that because she's hot. And I'm like, this is boring. That's a boring story to tell me. When she's a fucking telepath, and that, like, is just the... Why? Why? Oh my god. It's fine. I was just really upset, because every time that Parisa came on screen, came on page, and they talked about how pretty she is and how she looked and how men react to her and how women react to her, all I could think was this thing that my mom told my sister and I growing up, like, all the time, which is why it sticks in my brain, is that as a woman, the least important thing you can ever be is pretty. It is the least interesting thing about you. It will be the least important thing about you your whole life. That is not what matters. And every time Parisa was on page and it just talked about how pretty she was and why that was somehow so important to who she was as a character, I'm like, this is the part that I don't give a shit about. I don't care that she looks like Megan Fox. Tell me about her fucking mind reading. And so the stuff with her that I really liked, the Parisa interactions that I thought were really good, was when she actually used her telepathy. So it was the stuff when she went into Dalton's mind, when she and Callum had that, like, mind battle. That was fucking cool. That was one of my favorite scenes in the whole book, like, hands down. Thank you for the follow, Edgar Perez. There was one other one. Oh, and then even, like, not using her telepathy, but, like, how strategic she was and how manipulative she was as a person. When she finagles that threesome, which, when I tell you, I did not know going into this that there was going to be a threesome just out of nowhere. But when she finagles that between her and Tristan and Livy to get what she wants and to make the situation work the way she wants it to, that was so fucking smart. And I was like, this is the person. This is the Parisa I want. Not this, like, why? Why? Everything else about her I could care less about. And then it was just the way that other people reacted to her, especially Reina. The way that Reina, who's written as more, like, shy and quiet and not as attractive, and especially Libby, not as attractive, and the way she just thinks about her as, like, you know, she gets whatever she wants because she's hot, and, like, you know, she's mean because she's hot. I was like, this is boring. Why? Oh, you might finish the book now that there's a surprise threesome. It literally, like, I kind of saw where the interaction was going, and I was like, what are we doing here? And then it did. And then it did. And I was like, I didn't expect that. I didn't hate it. I didn't hate it. It's not on-page sex, which would have been weird, I think, for this, not for this book, because there is on-page sex, which, by the way, was entirely unnecessary to this book. I firmly believe the only reason there is so much on-page sex in this book is so that it's NA and not YA. There was literally no reason for it. And I have nothing against smut in books. I have nothing against sex being in books. But when there's just no reason other than to be like, look, I wrote an adult book. You didn't need that. You really didn't need that in here. But yeah, the excessive amount, and not even just the amount of sex, but the amount that it's talked about all the time. And I was like, I get it. I truly get it. It's an adult book. Good for you. I really get it. This is a little much. This is a little much. It was weird. And that brings me to my theory of why Booktok likes this so much. I have a feeling it's because of the sex. I have a feeling it's because this really has a lot of like YA dark academia vibes, but it's also got the NA sex and sexual tension in it, which I think is probably why Booktok liked it so much. And maybe this is not giving Booktok enough credit, but I think it's because so much of Booktok is heavily, heavily populated by young teenagers who mostly read YA and don't see a lot of that in their books. And so when it pops up in here, it's very different, it's very exciting, it's very new. I have a feeling that's why it got so big. I just do. I'm not saying that's the only reason anybody liked it, but I have a feeling if that wasn't in here, people would not have been as obsessed with it. That's just my 2 cents. I could be wrong, but that's gonna go off, isn't it? The sex with Dalton could have been, yeah, so the threesome made sense plot-wise. That's what I'm saying. Like, that one was fine because it made sense to the plot. There was a reason for it. All the stuff with Dalton, unnecessary. You actually forgot about the Dalton stuff. Dalton as a character, I was like, I don't know. She could have made Dalton believe they were having sex and it would... That is a fantastic point. That's a fantastic point. She never actually had to touch anybody. She could have just made them think they were. That's a great point. I mean, I get where she's coming from, where, like, the easiest time to get into somebody's mind is in the middle of sex. Like, I get that. She made it make sense, but I still was just like, your whole character comes down to the fact that you're hot. Like, I don't know. Dalton, okay. Yeah, Dalton as a person was okay. Like, he was there. He was kind of necessary, I guess, because he did reveal some stuff. You cannot look me in the face and tell me nobody figured out that one of them was gonna die. Or nobody would have figured out if Dalton hadn't let it slip. Because I figured that out real quick. When they were like, we'll bring 6 of you and 5 of you will advance, I was like, cool, one of them's gonna die. Immediately! Because you gotta think, if they spend a year, like, training you or whatever it is that they're gonna do, they're not just gonna let you go back into the world. Where did you think this was gonna go? So, the fact that nobody picked up on the fact that they were gonna die, and then that Libby didn't pick up on it, because she's the last to find out. Tristan starts to tell her, and when he starts talking about the trolley problem, I thought that was him telling her without telling her. I thought that was like a, like, we're making eyes at each other, like, you get what I'm putting down, you picking up what I'm putting down, but it wasn't. It still did not occur to her. And I was like, why are you making her look stupid like this? Why is this making her look so stupid? Because as, like, that, if you hadn't already figured it out, that should have triggered something. Whatever. Speaking of the society, am I supposed to be on their side? Am I supposed to like the society? Because I don't. I think they're wrong. I think everything about the society is wrong. And I think the forum is right. Like, from the moment the society is introduced, I think it's with... Is it with Callan? So Atlas goes and he recruits everybody. He goes and he talks to them and he tells them what the society is. And I want to say it was Callum or Tristan is the one where he starts going into how they're picked. He's like, you know, it's a very, you know, 1% of the population that could be part of this, or point, you know, whatever percent of the population. And he starts going into how they're chosen. And what it basically comes down to is, like, you have the world population, and then you have the magical population, and then you have the magical population that get into elite schools, and then you have us. And I'm like, you lost me at elite schools. Because you didn't explain how these elite schools work, how people get into them, how people pay for them. Do you have to have money? Because what I'm getting from everything in this book is that they're only available, not necessarily that they're only available to the rich and powerful, but that they are mostly available to the rich and powerful. Is it a Hogwarts thing? Do you just get a letter if you have magic? Because once you talk about the fact that there are elite schools to get into, you necessitate the idea that there are not elite schools. And we've talked a little bit about that with Reina, because she's like, I could have gone to a really nice school, but I chose not to because I didn't want to be in Tokyo. I don't know. So there was no structure to that. And so the entire time that I'm looking at the society, I'm like, okay, This is rich and powerful people protecting knowledge for rich and powerful people to help them get and stay rich and powerful. I don't like that. Especially when the only person you ever see come back to the society, the only character we meet, or not even meet, but hear about who came back, was a politician getting dirt from the magical library on her political opponent so that she could win her political race. And I was like, am I supposed to think that you're like doing some good for the world? Because all you've shown me is that you get politicians, you get hedge fund runners, you get CEOs, you get rich people continuing to be rich, using magic to get and stay rich for the 1%. So like, am I supposed to like the society? Because I don't. So that's where I was already at. And then when you bring in this idea that there's another group, the Forum, and they think this knowledge should be available to everybody, I was like, they're right. I'm on their side. Why would I not be on their side? In what world have you given me any indication that I should give a shit about the society? Because they kind of had that whole, like, we don't, you know, if this information was out to everybody, it would be dangerous. And I can kind of understand that, but you seriously undermine it when the only people using this information are politicians and CEOs. I don't care about them. Eat the rich. Where I'm at with this. So the library, yeah, so the library kind of gives you, I want to say whatever you want because it doesn't. And that's the other thing. We can't really tell you what the library gives you or how the magic works because there's no world building. I fucking dare somebody in here to explain to me how magic works in this book. Anybody. Can you explain to me the magic system in this world? I don't think you can because I don't think there is one. How does magic work in this world? I don't even know if Olivie Blake knows how magic works in this world. Here's a question. What's the difference between a witch and a Median? Because 380 pages, I couldn't fucking tell you. I have no idea what the difference is between a witch and a Median. Because she never talks about it. She talks about Medians, and I was like, okay, cool. That's our world for magic people. Like, that's what we call magic people. Great, I got it. And then she mentions witches, and I was like, wait. So what's a witch then? So there's like mortals, which don't get me started on the fact that we are called mortals because that necessitates the idea that there are immortals. What? So there's mortals, regular ass people, and then there's witches. So all magical people are witches. And then some magical people are Medians. What is a Median? What is the difference? What makes them? I don't know. I have no idea. I don't get it. Does that just mean it's a witch with like a special power? Like they all have something special? I don't know. Just assumed it was a designation of power level. But like, we shouldn't have to assume anything. Felt like witches weren't born with magic, but you could use spells. But here's the thing. There are no spells either. How does magic work? Because there's no spells, but there are charms and illusions and powers. How does magic in this book work? And it's a rhetorical question because nobody knows. Because the book doesn't fucking tell you. I was upset. I don't understand. That was like the number one thing that got me is at a certain point I realized that I didn't know how magic worked in this world. And then I just was never going to. Because as I got further and further in the book and nothing was explained, no fucking clue. Absolutely no idea. Oh, and then the idea that I spent so much of this book trying to figure out if the mortal world and the magical world coexisted or not. She doesn't tell you until page 364 in a 380-page book that, like, explicitly mortals and magic are separate, and mortals don't know about magic. I spent the whole book trying to figure out if that was the case or not. And, like, eventually I did kind of infer that they were separate, but I shouldn't have had to infer that. You should have told me before page 364. You should have told me on page 3. It's very easy, very early stuff. I'm fine. I'm fine. I had a lot of strong feelings about the things that this book is missing. World building being one of the biggest ones. Yeah, and then, like, what's the point of magic? What does it do? Because the only thing that we talk about are magical hedge funds and magical CEOs and magical organizations and magical rich people. And what else can people with magic do? What else do they do? There is some mention in Reyna's introduction that naturalists will help with like harvest and farming. Cool. Show me more of that. But like, what do you do after you go to magic school? Because the only person that we saw not working with magic, like, and actually working, was Reyna, and she was a waitress. But like, what do you do? What do you do with your magic? What do you do with magic after magic school? I just don't know. There is nothing in this that convinces me that there is a world outside of the society building that has magic in it and that anybody gives a shit about. Like, it's the worst kind of, like, all of the rich CEOs are only rich CEOs because they're magic and they use magic and that's it. What? There's a magical gang. Tristan's dad, yeah, was like a magical gang leader. So there's magical gangs? We're not gonna get into that? There's creatures! And we're not gonna get into that? Nico's mom is a mermaid. There are magical creatures, and we're just not going to talk about it. We're just not going to get into it. We're not going to discuss it. Because Gideon, oh, sorry, thank you, Gideon's mom. Because Gideon is like a halfling. He's like half mermaid. Is he half mermaid, half human? He's half mermaid, half something. And his satyr, thank you. His dad's a satyr. I don't even want to get into how that works. She's got a fish. She's got a bottom half of a fish. And he's got the bottom half of a goat. I'm not getting into this. I'm not thinking about this. We're moving on. We're moving on. Anyway, so Gideon is half satyr, half mermaid, who comes out looking human. And then there is, like, again, she kind of hides kernels of things because there is some precedent for halfling creatures. Because it's stated that Gideon doesn't have, like, any rights as a person. Like, he's not recognized as a person. And the only reason he was able to go to the school that Tristan went to, and that's how they met, that Nico went to, and that's how they met, was that they wanted to study him because they didn't really have access to any creatures like him. So there's just so much, like I said, it is the bare bones, it's the skeleton of a story with a lot of potential that just doesn't go anywhere with it. It is incredibly shallow. So, like, you got a good base, you got a good foundation, and then I told you, Steven, we're moving on. We're not talking, I don't want to talk about eggs. I don't want to purge. Don't want it. And then I have a note here that just, we're from Liz and I were talking, it just says the magic system is purely based on vibes. Because we were both trying to figure out, like, how does the magic system work? It's just vibes. Just vibes. Because again, I couldn't tell you how Libby's magic works. She's like a pyro or something? Does she create fire? Does she, like, throw it out of her hands? What happens? I got nothing. So, there's that. There's no world building. The characters are all incredibly shallow because she spends way too much time focusing on all of them instead of focusing on a couple of them. So I really think this book should have been Mac's 2 points of view, and I think it should have been Nico and Libby. And I think that would have worked well in a lot of different ways. I think they have a connection to each other, which keeps the book cohesive, even dividing it between two people. I think that they already felt like outsiders going into the society because they were so much younger than everybody else. Like, you could have told the same story through both of their eyes, and you know what that would have necessitated? It would have necessitated them interacting with the other 6 or the other 4 people more, which would have given you more fleshed out characters. So in a way, focusing less on the other 4 would have fleshed out the other 4 a lot more. I don't know. It really should not have been 6 points of view. I will say the only thing in this book that I really didn't see coming was I did not see Atlas turning out to be like a traitor to the society. Didn't see that coming. That was a whole, like, whoo, didn't know where that came from. Ezra being like a time traveling dude, didn't see that coming until he pops up in that weird, like, plane of time that Tristan hangs out in. That was crazy. Yeah, so what do I have? I have dual POV, I had the notes on women, I'm not on the society side. How did no one catch on that someone was gonna die? Oh, so once we started talking about the fact that someone had to die, Callum's character felt like a cop-out. Because when you create a scenario where you have 6 characters and only 5 can survive, when you have one who you have specifically written to be a hateable character, it is very easy for everybody to be like, it's him, he's gotta die. Like, there was no, like, they came to that conclusion. They kind of made it seem like it was a hard choice for, like, Tristan at least. But they came to the conclusion really easy that Callum had to die. The reader came to the conclusion very easily, I think, that Callum was going to be the one. Because you didn't like him. He was not a likable character. He was very easy to hate. I will say, Ezra ending up kidnapping Libby at the end. That was interesting. Didn't really see that coming. Oh my god, though, now I'm thinking about, like, the mess that he left behind, the illusion of her dead body that he left behind. I will say this is one thing I think she did well. I wanted so bad to see that scene from somebody else's point of view because I wanted to know what they saw. I wanted specifically to know what they were seeing when they looked in her room and saw her dead because it sounds like it was brutal. It sounds like it was brutal. But because we were seeing it through Tristan's eyes, all we saw was that was nothing. There was nothing there. And so everybody is like traumatized from what they're seeing, and he's just like, there is nothing there. I don't know what you're looking for. Like I don't know why you're all freaking out. There's nothing there. So I think that was good though, because that's kind of a like, I don't know. I think that was a really good thing to kind of leave me wanting more of. It was a good idea to tell, not show, in a way, because usually you want to show, not tell, but that I think was good. I think that was a good choice. And then what do I have? Callum is the absolute fucking worst. So Callum and Ezra both have this dialogue pattern where they sound like, you're like, this person thinks they're the smartest person in any room they walk into, and it is obnoxious in the worst way. And with Callum, I don't think it was intentional. Like, I hated his dialogue, and I thought he was super pretentious and super awful. I don't know that that was the idea I was supposed to get. I think the psychopathy, like the fact that this is just a crazy guy, I think that was what I was supposed to get, but all the pretension. And when I tell you, I was gouging my eyeballs out at like the first or second Ezra point of view, where he has this like 2-page monologue on starving. I wanted to rip my eyeballs from my head. I was like, this man, this is definitely one of those where like you're watching a monologue in a show and you're like, if this would be so much better if somebody just interrupted him with a gun to his face and just like, your villain monologuing, boom, we're done. Oh my god, that like 2-page monologue on starving. And then he brings it up again later and I was like, you fucking know that this stupid starving monologue is so rehearsed and so practiced, and every time he gets drunk he probably pulls it out and everybody around him is like, here he goes again talking about starving. Oh my god, I hated it. His dialogue and Callum's dialogue was just not my jam. I wasn't feeling it. I wasn't vibing with it. And then his relationship with Tristan was super weird. I didn't understand the Tristan and Callum relationship because I saw it as like kind of a friendship of convenience. They only hung out because they were there. Like that was it. There was nothing that really brought them together. But then later in the book she starts talking about how like Tristan loves him, and I got the idea that she might have meant romantic love and not platonic love, and that didn't make sense to me at all. Like at no point was there any indication that like Callum was somebody that likable in any way. Like Callum gave me no reason to believe that anybody would like him. I had no reason to believe that Tristan would be in love with him. Like they were just they were just chilling because they were there. They were like friends of convenience. And then she tries to like make me think that Tristan loved him. And what? I don't know. I was kind of confused. I don't know why Tristan liked him so much. I don't know. I have no idea. There is no reason. And I get that at a certain point, Callum was manipulating Tristan's emotions, and he did catch on to that, and that's when he started to not trust him. But I was never shown as the reader in any way that there was any reason for Tristan to love Callum or to really care about him, or for it to be such a hard, heart-wrenching thing for him to have to kill him. I don't know. Didn't really tell me anything. And then I just say Reyna is so underutilized. Because again, we've had this whole conversation about all these other characters about talking about Reyna, because she just wasn't utilized. It is the point of Callum's power. I get that. Like, I get that at a certain point he was manipulating him to be friends and to trust him, but it was never shown. So when she says that, like, Tristan loves him, that came out of nowhere. Because even if we're in Tristan's head, we should have been seeing how his relationship or his feelings for Callum are growing, even if it was just manipulation, but we never were. It always just seemed like, I don't know, he's just kind of there, and nobody hangs out with him, so I hang out with him. But, like, why? I don't know. And then it just goes, it's just me talking about the magic systems, and what's the point of any of this. And that brings me to my question about the sequel. I have concerns about the sequel, because we're left with Ezra, who kidnaps Libby, and then he creates this, like, anti-society. So the whole plan had always been that Atlas and Ezra were going to take over the society together and change it for the better. And then Atlas is kind of going off the rails with that a little bit. Ezra doesn't trust it, so he makes his own little anti-society. And it's got its own 6 people in it. And that makes me real worried that there's going to be another 6 points of view in book 2. And that means either one of 2 things. Either we're going to have a book with 12 points of view when she couldn't handle 6, or we're going to get an entirely new 6 points of view, and in that book, completely forget about this. I don't know. I'm gonna lose my mind. Because what I can kind of see potentially working is if it's a book split up into multiple parts, and like part 1 focuses on the society and those 6 points of view. We don't deviate from those 6. And then part 2 focuses on this anti-society, and we focus on those 6 new points of view. I don't know. I'm hoping and begging and praying to God she is not going to give us points of view for all 6 of these new characters. I seriously hope not. That's where I'm at with this book. I think I gave it a 3. It's like a low 3. It's not quite a 2.5. I think Liz gave it a 2. Yes, we're gonna look at your guys' reviews now. So that's mine. How long did I just spend fucking talking about this? I did not mean, I talked longer than I meant to. But that's where I'm at. Yes, so I'm like a 2.8, 2.9. It's like low 3, but higher than a 2.5. Because it did keep me invested enough to read it pretty quickly. Was that because I was really, really bored the day that I read 80% of it? Maybe. But anyway. Alright, your guys' reviews. Let's see, let me make this bigger. I'm really curious, because I feel like it's gonna be pretty middling. I'm curious to see if anybody really, really liked it. That's what I'm waiting for. So no audiobook, 2 ebooks, and 12 physical books. How many people finished it? Ooh, this is our biggest portion of DNFs, I think, so far. 5 people DNF'd it. Let's see why. In the first quarter, first half, almost got to the end. Let's see, ran out of time, got bored, didn't like the characters, just life, that's fair, and busy with holidays. Fair enough, fair enough. Okay, what would make you keep reading it? Less assignments for school, make time and get back in the mood. There's too many characters and I didn't find most of them interesting. I wish I could tell you that would change. When I'm in the mood for a magical school story, no eye injury. The characters are so unlikable. I wish I could tell you that was gonna change. Okay, what did everybody rate? Wow, quite a way. So most of us gave it a 3. That's to be expected. No 5s, I see. No 5s. A couple 3.5s, 1 4, 1 4.5. Somebody really liked it. A couple 2 stars and a couple 2.5 stars. So nobody really, really hated it. We had no 1 stars and we had no 5 stars. Fair enough. Would you reread this? 1 person would reread this. I was one of the maybe someday crew. And then most people know. That's fair. That's fair. There is a pretty large spread here. Okay, story. We got a 5 stars. Somebody really liked the story. We have 4 stars, we got some 3 stars, we got some 2 stars. I think I went 3-3 on mine. Characters. We had a couple 5 stars, a couple people really liked the characters, a couple of 5 3 stars, and 5 2 stars. So like I said, this is kind of turning out how I thought it would. Like I thought it would be like pretty middling for most of us. I did a 2 on the characters. And writing style, mostly a 3, few 2 stars, and a couple 4 stars. That's pretty standard. It looks like most of across the board are pretty middling 3s and 2s. A couple people really liked it, and no 1 stars. It said 5-star characters. Where? It said bitch where? This was such a disappointment, honestly. I think that is the first thing I said, was this was a disappointment. I feel like all the characters had great potential, and had the story had more substance, it could have been great. The most interesting parts of the stories happened in the first 50 and the last 50 pages, and everything in between felt meandering and confusing. Fair. There were, at the same time, too many point of view characters for such a limited setting, and yet not enough time was spent with certain characters. For a book about these 6 people who need to fully mesh themselves in each other's lives, they spent a remarkable amount of time not being with one another. That's what I'm saying! Like, you guys lived in close proximity for a year, and I swear by the end of it, some of you still don't know each other. So many passages were meandering inner monologues or one-sided conversations, completely defeating the purpose of smashing such a rich cast together in close quarters. On the whole, the book just didn't give me enough. It's like I said it myself. I think it's like my own review. Alright. I liked it. I found it difficult to visualize the characters in the setting. I wonder if this was an ebook, because it's interesting that you found it difficult to visualize the characters when there are pictures of the characters in the book. I found descriptions to be lacking. I guess that's like in the moment kind of visualizations, I suppose. Can't relate. I didn't get attached to many of the characters. I found the purpose of the Atlas 6 took too long to come to fruition. It just seemed kind of weird to gather 6 people for the library and then everyone's doing research, but why? The story was a little predictable. I did like the development of the relationship between different characters. I just wish they were fleshed out more. I will applaud her on making Ezra a sneaky background character. I honestly didn't give him a second glance, so I wasn't expecting to see him again after Libby dumped him. Thought the story was good, and I would recommend this book to select people. Very select. Oh boy! Second book club review. Had a lot of feelings about the last one, House of Salt and Sorrows. In contrast, the only feeling I have about this book is a loud sigh. The entire experience was meh, and I found a lot of the book to be boring. 4/6 of the book, to be exact, as I found most of the characters to be uninteresting for the most part. The book had interesting moments, but those were fewer than large sections that left me feeling uninterested. Characters. The book has 6 point of view characters. A diverse group of people from all different backgrounds, sexualities, wide-ranging powers, or as I like to refer to them, the Power Rangers. Get out. I'm not reading the rest of this review. Not after that. Oh my god. Oh my god. Of the main 6, Paris's mind-wandering and Tristan's discovering of his weird time abilities, I found interesting in those chapters that they took place. Other than that, not a lot that I liked, but very little I hated. I think the biggest thing about this book that stinks is that all of our POV characters don't change. That's true. There is no character development. There's like no growth. There was no development. The people that come in at the beginning are the people that leave at the end. They are the same. Let's talk about themes. A pervasive theme of the world is shitty and people are shitty, and it's really hard to be super powerful because I'm aware of how shitty everything is, but it doesn't do anything with that. Very true. All of the characters think this way, but are willing to play ball with the society because it will get them what they want, which implies that all the characters are selfish. Nico is the only one in it for anyone other than themselves. I'm telling you, his connection to Gideon is the only thing that makes him such a good character, as opposed to everybody else who had, like, nothing like that. This could be looked at as some metaphor for modern capitalism, but our lovely band of characters are fully content just existing and make no effort to really do anything to change the status quo because they all benefit from it being mostly from wealthy backgrounds for the capitalism metaphor. Wait. Oh! Dang it! I almost had it without stuttering, and then I just read the same line twice. I was on it. I was on a roll. Inherently classist. One more word. No, that's exactly right, though. Like, that's what killed me is I understand if you want to tell a story where, because of capitalism, like, even magic is capitalist. I get that. I really do. Do something with it. Do anything with it. Literally anything. And she doesn't. They're all just like, okay, we live in a capitalist society, so we're also going to be capitalists. We're also going to hate it. Just, whatever. Additionally, I found parts of the book to be distractingly derivative. Nico's dreamwalking is basically Inception, the power. The book calls itself out here by including including Inceptive in its text, I believe, and even has Nico seek to develop a totem so he knows if he's in a dream or not. The book calls itself out by having Parisa read an X-Men comic say, look, I'm basically Charles Xavier. Just a weird detail to include. We know what telepaths are. Also, Atlas is already a telepath. He's bald and has his students in a manor away from society in a lush countryside. We sure Ezra's abilities aren't being able to control metal? Speaking of Ezra, a time traveler who can't save his mother from being murdered? Okay, The Flash. Good lord, you are correct, my friend. In conclusion, the book was competently written with complex characters. The problem is these characters are impossible to root for because they start off insufferable and do not change their worldview, making the reading experience a chore since most of the book are their inner thoughts. The book's interesting in some parts where there's action, killing bad guys, solving a mind labyrinth, testing the boundaries of your time vision. All of that was great. But for the most part, I do not like these characters. I do not want to read more about them. The only characters I can connect with and root for are Libby, who's removed from the story in the final act, and Nico, who's the only person there for non-selfish reasons. Why are we the same person? This is great. I love this. Hooked from the start. Okay, so I'm going to guess this is maybe our 4.5. I tended to like each character more when I was reading it from their perspective, but would immediately dislike them when described by others. Unique way to build character development. What character development? Anyway, Libby was the extreme. Lots of give and take that kept me from picking a favorite until the end. Callum, no, I'm sorry, you're wrong. You're wrong. You are objectively incorrect. This is incorrect. This is factually inaccurate. I'm sorry to tell you this. Whoever you are, incorrect. Callum is the best character. I'm fine. His power was intoxicating. Blake was at her best when writing his dialogue. His dialogue was my least favorite part of the whole book. His dialogue was literally under my least favorite part of the book. Oh, I'm sorry. Arguably the strongest power, very true. And I wonder why he never tried to take Atlas. That was the thing, like, he had a really strong power, and the only reason that they ever gave for him not using it, because, like, I think they ask at one point, like, how long would it take you to start a war? And it's, like, less than 4 minutes. Like, he could do a lot of damage, but he doesn't because he's so indifferent to the world around him. He doesn't care about anything. Which, like, I guess you could work with that? I don't know. But yes, he does have an insanely powerful power that he just doesn't use. Which, I mean, I guess good for him. Like, he didn't end the world. Eh. When he made Parisa walk off the ledge, had me fucked up, and the conversation toward the end with Tristan was chef's kiss. Potential to be a 5-star with better editing, which we hopefully get from Tor. I'm very looking forward to that. For example, conversations would jump without warning. One sentence to the next, you would be in a different setting or a past memory. A little odd at times. Underwhelmed somewhat of Ezra's twist appearance. The foreshadowing to time travel was thick, so I knew something like that would happen. I was impressed Blake was able to deliver in-depth character development and arcs for so many characters in a short novel. Great start to the series, and I can see how we've only tapped into this universe. I am very curious to see, like, what you think of the next books. I don't know whose this is, but with the next books. Interesting. Okay, so I'm gonna guess, because it was an almost 5, that's our 4.5 review. Honestly, the story felt kind of flat for me. I understand it's trying to be a mystery, and it leans really hard into the secret society story, but it can be kind of exhausting, and it seems as though every little thing was kept secret from both the reader and the characters. I found very rarely was I more informed than the characters, and while sometimes this lack of awareness can be good, when it's the basis of the reader's relationship with literally every single character, I just find I never knew any of them well at all. Expanding on that, having 6 main characters in the story seemed like too much. Rather than each character helping to build up the world further, it seemed to cause me more confusion about the world itself. The basis of the magic system seems to be a hard rather than soft magic system. However, the lack of information on how the system works means I felt little connection to the magic system. The reliance on tell rather than show threw me out pretty hard. As I am an imaginatory reader, I build up the image of the world in my head like a movie. This was the first book in a long time I have not been able to build the image of at all. The last section of the book definitely redeemed it for me, and would love to see what this book will be when it's republished and hopefully given a new edit to consolidate some of the many stories going on that seem to lead nowhere. Overall, the story does have some very interesting bones, but seems to struggle in a way the story gets its flow, as I found it hard to binge read even though it read quickly. I'm really curious to see if the re-edit is going to be shorter or longer, because I think what would be very interesting is if they cut down some of the points of view. If they just cut out some of them, like, entirely. Because you could get rid of Reyna's, you could get rid of Callum's, You could easily, those two are easy cuts. It does need to grow, not shrink, but it needs to do both. There are things that you can take out, mainly the different points of view, and there are things that it definitely needs to add. The world building, for one, needs to be a lot bigger. So maybe it would come out like similarly, because there's like a lot of stuff you can get rid of. Look, Reina is one of my favorite characters, but she's so underutilized and she's in it so little that you don't really get anything from her point of view that you need. Because, like, what was the point of having her at all? She doesn't do anything. You can get every piece of information that you need for the story about Reina from other characters. She doesn't give you anything that you need to the story, which is upsetting because I loved her. I wanted more of her. Woo! Look at all the reviews we got! This is not so much fun. Okay, quotes. I think I saved one, and I have a feeling it might be in here. Any quotes that stood out? The trouble with knowledge, the idiosyncrasy of its particular addiction, was that it was not the same as other types of vice. Because knowledge was not chemical, was not physical or hormonal or easily within reach. Someone given a taste of omniscience could never be satisfied by the contents of a bare reality without it. That is nice! That is good! I do like that. I remember that. All man can love a forbidden thing, generally speaking, and in most cases, knowledge is precisely that. Lost knowledge, even more so. Beware the man who faces you unarmed. If in his eyes you are not the target, then you can be sure you are the weapon. There are some, like, individual good lines. Really, there was nothing more dangerous than a woman who knew her own worth. I saved exactly one quote, and it will shock absolutely no one. Theoretically, men are a disaster. As a concept, I unequivocally reject them. Libby. Is anybody surprised that's the only quote in the whole book that I saved? And then what do you guys hope to see in the sequel, The Atlas Paradox? Actual meaningful character interactions. More character description or development, better scene setting and world development. For the love of God, have some actual character development. Where at least some of the Atlas Six become good people. Or at the very least, don't have their inner monologues be a My Chemical Romance song. How dare you? That is rude to My Chemical Romance. Otherwise, I just want the book to be about Ezra being a good anti-villain, succeeding in his mission to destroy magic billionaires, and Nico can be our wisecracking, good-natured hero. Not sure what will happen, but what could Callum do if he actually tried to make people feel good about themselves instead of using dread as a weapon? The story has to dive deeper into Dalton's past and power. I'm sure the complicated relationship between him and Atlas will get fleshed out. More from opposing thoughts on magic. Interested to see how much power from the mortal world influences their politics. Obviously want to see everyone's power maxed out and more fight scenes. Less points of view! I'm so scared it's going to be more. I'm so scared it's going to be 12. More interesting plot lines for the individual characters. I did like the overall plot, but I wasn't interested in the private life of the characters or their reasons for wanting to join the society. I have no hope for a sequel. I would love to see the series become more than just loads of deep mysteries. I would like to start to know the characters properly and the world itself. The more expansion on the library element is absolutely required, as it's the entire premise, but its interaction with the characters is rare. Unless for the reviews for the second one mention a drastic change in character quality or plot, I doubt I'll even read it. I hope Olivie Blake loads the sequel up with the history of the society and the forum. There's a decent amount of time traveling and uses the conflict between Atlas and Ezra to pad the hell out of the story. Like I mentioned earlier, the story has only about 100 pages of Save Libby plot to work with. So a lot of us came out with very similar thoughts. A lot of us came out thinking the characters weren't fleshed out enough and that the world building just wasn't there. So yeah, we had one person who really, really liked it. Not that you're alone if you're the person that really liked it. This book is very, very, very highly rated and reviewed, so you're not alone. And then, let me see. Where is... Okay. So we had 14 responses, right? Ow. Woo! I don't know if that one went through, but my neck has never cracked like that. Oh my god. That was like I broke something. That was weird. That last one, that was, ooh, that was a little worrying. So our average rating, this might be, this is definitely one of the lower ones, a 3.04. We'll round it up, a 3.04. was the average for this one, which might be the lowest we've had since the very first one that we all hated. Man. December better end us on a good... Oh! Thank you, Carter! We have to figure out what our December book is gonna be. So... to reiterate... Ow. Hang on. Ah. I'm pretty sure I know what it's gonna be. That's true, we didn't have half stars for a while. Alright. So. Refresh this. 25 responses on this. Can I do this? Can I do that? Ooh. Not what I wanted. Not what I wanted. Hang on, we're just gonna do it in the small screen. So, our options are Foundry Side by Robert Jackson Bennett. That is deceptively small. This is the second longest book in the bunch. So, Foundry Side by Robert Jackson Bennett. The Lost Apothecary by Sarah Penner. Pretend there's not a 50% off sticker right here. Renegades by Marissa Meyer. This is a... Oh, I haven't said what they are. This is a YA sci-fi about villains, I think. Super villains, if I remember correctly. And Skyward by Brandon Sanderson, which is also YA sci-fi. The Lost Apothecary is not fantasy. I think it's historical fiction, mystery thriller, and then Foundry Side is adult fantasy. So, the pie chart is not clean. It's not clean because I messed with the information in it. So, let's see what it is. It's got like 6 options in the pie chart. Oh, hang on. Oh, I'm on the wrong one! Hang on. I'm on the first round of nominations. Wait, let me turn that off. Because I don't know what it's gonna show when I move to my other ones. Final round. There we go. There we go. Okay. Didn't mess anything up. 21 responses. And our winner is... I believe it's going to be this one. So, 6 votes for Skyward. 4 votes for Renegades. Foundry Side got 3, 4. And Lost Apothecary got 6 and 7. It split it up. So yes, our December book is going to be The Lost Apothecary by Sarah Penner. Am I surprised that you guys picked the shortest book? No, I am not. But here we are. So this is what we're doing for next month. There we have it. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for being part of book club. Thank you for voting for The Lost Apothecary. This was the one that I kept saying that I added it as like an afterthought, and then it just like completely took over the voting, which I did not expect. So I'm glad that I added this one. And yeah. Okay. Bye, everybody.